This is probably, well, we'll see. If anybody shows up, it might last a little while, but if nobody comes to this thing, then this will be a short update and I'll go on about my day. I've just received a reminder from Facebook telling me I'm supposed to be streaming right now. Oh, there's one person here. Facebook works. Good morning. All right, so got comments open. Oh, good. I can do banners too. I don't remember how any of this shit works. Excuse me. All right, I got a like. Yeah, it seems every time I do this, there's just less and less people, and I wonder. Well, like I'm not complaining. Like, oh, there's nobody paying attention. I don't mention that for that reason. I really do think that Facebook is tamping down on reach as far as what's put in front of you guys when I say anything really. I think they just really want you to be paying for it now. So and I'm not going to pay them. They can they can blow. I was starting to think maybe I should do like an Instagram thing. My son tells me that everybody's on the Instagram. My wife too. She says there's book groups and that the the sharing is better. Like the things that you want to find huddled around your phone. Oh man, the tiny screen. Yeah, my wife says that Instagram seems to be really good for book stuff. Like you're more likely to have the things that you're interested in put in front of you. I was thinking, oh, maybe I'd do something like that, but then that means that there's a whole other social media thing that I've got to do, and oh god, I don't want to. Very busy right now. Lots going on. Folks in here. There's six. Gary Norwood says I didn't see any prior notice to this video. Yeah, maybe some of that's my fault too. Um, I'm well, I don't know. I don't know if you can tell there's any difference, but I'm not on Facebook quite as much these days. I'm very busy. I'm you might know I have two jobs. I've got writing, which is how you know me, and then I have a day job that I mean, depending on how the writing goes, I would refuse to give it up anyway. Even if I was making like crazy money as a writer, the money's okay, but it's not something I would want to try to live off of. The money is uneven. Book release comes out, hey, money's good, then it tapers off and it gets hard to pay bills on just that. But apart from that, I have the kind of job during the daytime. It's an engineer where even if I won the lottery, I'd keep working because I like what I do. I have a lot of fun doing it. But you don't care about that. You're here for commune updates. Okay. I'm going to run through a few. And if any of you guys have questions about the series that you want to ask, or comments you'd like to make, or a discussion you'd like to have, go ahead and post them in the chat. I will certainly address them. Otherwise, like I said, I can get through these pretty quick. So Commune 7 is done. I mean, it's done as of November last year. I think probably a lot of you see that when I drop an update about a book being done or a coming release. A lot of people seem to see that. I think there's a lot of likes, and then that's kind of bubbled up to the top. So, but yeah, that book is done. It's gone through all the editing and so forth, and it's been tentatively scheduled for production. Of course, you all know how that goes. They have they they have a thing in the industry called Bob Time. He's a very in-demand narrator, and if I had any other narrator for the series, I'm sure you would crucify me. So yeah, we're just gonna wait for him, which is no different than how it's always been for me, even since I started working with him. Uh, you know, he'll do a book, but he will get to it when he can get to it. So let me see production scheduled for fall of this year, which I know is a bit of a wait between the last release, Commune 6, the Gibbs book. But hey, I mean, you feel lucky to even get him at some point in the year. So uh, we'll sit back and wait for that. I'm sure he's gonna do a killer job on it, just like he always does. Few people have read it, Commune 7, I mean, and they all seem to like it quite a bit. The people who have seen it, so that's good. Um, what can I say about it that won't give too many spoilers? Well, I mean, I've been open about the fact that Jake will be in Commune 7. Um, one of the things that I was curious about regarding that was how people would react to the way he's reintroduced. And I keep waiting for someone to say, "Oh, I don't know, I don't like this," or "I don't like the way you did this." Nobody said that yet, so that makes me pretty happy. That gives me some hope that I'll satisfy folks with this. You worry about these things when you get a character that everybody seems to really enjoy and connect with for whatever reason. And you put them away for a while because well, you've done everything with them that you planned on doing, and then later on you kind of get an idea and say, "Ooh, I think I know what else I would like to do with this character." Then you bring it back and you think, okay, well, especially if they're well received in the earlier stories, you think, okay, well, right now, if I just put that character away and don't touch him again, there's no chance I'll screw it up. Like right right now, everybody's happy. If I bring him back, there's a chance I'll make some people quite unhappy because it's never going to be exactly what the audience imagines for themselves or hopes it is. It's just what I think is right. So we'll see if the audience agrees with what I think is right. But yeah, like I said, everybody who's read the thing so far, none of them have commented on how he's reintroduced back into this story and timeline. Nobody's mentioned anything about it feeling uh false or wrong. Everybody's commented that they're really happy about how the thing comes together and how book 7 uh ties together the various disparate stories, right? So you've got kind of like the mainline story that everybody's originally familiar with, like 1 through 4. Then there's 5, which is sort of a bridge book that I wrote with Devin. There's 6, which is the Gibbs book that I always promised you guys I was going to do. 6, I think, doesn't really tie directly into the main thrust of the story, but I think that 6 is critical to understanding what's happening in the world over time. Because one of one of the things that always bugs me about post-apocalyptic stories in various forms is that they always seem to be stuck in that state, right? Like everything falls apart and then it's just year after year after year, perhaps decades, perhaps even more than decades, of people walking through the desert in dusters with handkerchiefs and goggles, and they've all got like really craggy rifles, and they all have, they can all still find jacketed ammo that works perfectly fine. They still have smokeless powder, and you can still all cycle the right. Everything's, all those symbols of the genre that you want to see. It's all still there and still working regardless of timeline. And I don't see a lot of examples of the the rebuild, the reorganization, and that's how humans are. Things get screwed up for a while, and then they start to rebuild because nobody nobody wants to live in misery for very long. It's like, okay, well, things are here. Let's organize and let's start building back up again. That's just a natural progression. So I think any story within the timeline, depending on where it happens, right, it has to show that progression. So I think six kind of uh, outside of just me fulfilling a promise to you and myself, because I think we both wanted to see that book, the Gibbs book. It was also that opportunity to show that the world's not going to stay in stasis. It's going to continue to rebuild, and indeed, you'll see that in seven as well. The story will progress further. The world will progress further. The people within it will continue to organize and build up new structures, which was interesting to me. That's why I came back after four and said, "Oh, okay, I'm going to keep writing more," because now this aspect of tribes and nation building intrigued me. It's especially with the starting conditions that had been set. So there we go. And that's also why there's these big time jumps in the books too. Like six is like 10 years past book one. I'm sorry guys, I'm trying to remember the timeline in my head now. The details kind of get fuzzy when you've been working on something for long enough. But I believe it's 10 years after book one, and not like 10 years after book four, for example, or three even. I'd have to go look at my notes. Yeah, a nice big jump, so that we can come back to the world fresh, and there's new things to discover, and it's not the same old thing. We have to get in a truck, we have to go to a house, we have to loot a house, and all the other business. Like I've written all that already. It's boring now to me. So there's got to be something new, right? Seven as well. Seven is something like, oh boy, 20, maybe it's like 10 years after six, in there somewhere. Again, I got to go back to the notes. I don't have these details like locked in perfectly. I've got a little cheat sheet that I'm looking at while I'm writing these things. The more books that you get into a series, the more you have to cheat with notes and so forth. I'm sorry, but it's not all just locked in this little pea brain of mine. You have to go back and remember what you did, and sometimes reread some of the things you've written, and sometimes be disgusted by the way you used to write. Mm. Oh, God bless coffee, huh? Oh boy. So I have some other news about this, and it's less happy news. And this is, I mean, for me, kind of a heartbreak. But seven is going to be the last book for now that Devin Ford and I collaborate on, and that's not because we've had a falling out at all. Oh, in fact, there he is on stream. He's here right now. But yeah, we haven't had a falling out. We're still very friendly with each other. We've got I would say I would characterize it as an excellent relationship. We've gotten to know each other pretty well working together. Of course, we wrote 5 together. We collaborated on 7, but after finishing off 7 last year, I had a we had a meeting, and I frankly told him, I was like, "Look, man, I need you to let me out of this project." Because there's certain realities inherent to writing a book with someone, and one of the chief is that if you're going to do the job right, a great deal of collaboration has to occur between the two. There's lots of meetings, lots of discussions that you have to have, and the nature of my life just over the last year, I would say, has compounded or gotten I would say complicated. There's just a tremendous demand on my time right now, at work, day work. Uh, there's certain things that I'm working on right now that are very big, that demand a lot of focus and effort. And so where I'm at now these days, working on books, I have a few hours that I can steal over the weekend now to work on the book, and that's it. During the week, my my day job, it takes everything I've got. I'm going from the time I wake up in the morning until whenever it is I eventually stop in the evening. And this isn't a complaint. It's interesting work, it's challenging work, and I enjoy it. But it takes a lot. And on top of doing that, I need to also be present for my family, and be there for them, and participate in activities with them and so forth. So like you get, a few hours on a Saturday and Sunday to work on a manuscript, and that's like you've got to be efficient and disciplined about that, man. You've got to sit down to the keyboard and go, and really get some output, or you're never going to finish the damn thing. uh, and before, when things were a little easy, I could get up like early in the morning, and I could kind of knock away on the thing before jumping in the shower and going to work. In the evenings, when I came home, there would be like a period where I could sit down with it and work on it and give it a little polish, and then the weekends were still my time to really get the work out. But yeah, no, it's a lot of go go go. And then there's also other challenges that are compounding that. Devin's also a devoted family man, and his family demands time from him that he must give. uh there's also the there's also the time difference that we have to fight with, because I'm here in the States, he's over in Europe. I think it's like 9 hours worth of difference. So the time that you can get together with a person on that basis, like over here in the States, it's like noon. And again, weekends, I need to be writing. I can't be like, I you can either write the thing or you can talk about writing the thing, right? When you're collaborating on a book with someone, you have to do both. You have to talk about writing the thing, and then you have to go away and write it. And I that's just life right now. I don't have the time to do both. I can sit down and write it, or that's it. So we had a talk about it, and we kind of, like, I was racking my brain trying to think of some way around this, or try to think of some means of communication, and that could kind of mitigate what we were dealing with, because it was hard to really get together. And at some point I kind of realized, like, you know what, I'm not being a good host. um and this is kind of how I conceptualize it, right? Like, it's my book series, my world. I'm the host, and he's a guest, and as a guest, I need to treat him a certain way. I need to give him what he needs so that he can do his part of the job, and I need to be supportive to the process. And I wasn't doing a good job of that, and I couldn't really find a way to improve the situation. So I felt like a real heel, and I had a discussion with him. I said, "Look, man, I'm too I'm too thin. I can't do it." And he was really cool about it. He was really gracious. Uh, you know, Dissolved the collaboration on amicable terms. But man, I I went away from that discussion like really just low, because you always feel really like he was disappointed. We were loved working together. Loved working on the project together. It's just restrictions, scheduling restrictions. So I came away from that fairly bummed. Um, but uh, the good news, like I said, it's amicable. We're still buddies, and we had discussed future projects kind of as a means to soften over that wound, right? I think he was pretty disappointed that we had to do this too, but totally understanding, like he got it. So grateful for that, grateful for his understanding. But the reality of this is that seven is a product of him and myself together. 8 and 9 will just be all me. So you guys will just have to put up with the story just coming from me again, which I guess he'll be okay with. I'll still be writing the best thing I can write. To Devin's readers, if on this news you say, well, I was here for Devin and I'm not probably interested in continuing along with this. Hey, I get it. That's cool. Thanks for stopping by. Not a problem. I totally understand. So that's these things just sometimes they just happen. Sometimes they just happen. Ooh. Alrighty. So yeah, working on 8 right now. I took a bit of a break after doing the polish on 7 and going through the final edit and so forth. Had a nice long Christmas holiday. Had as much of my family as I could get my hands on packed into this house, which is always it's funny. I think when I was younger, I always felt so taxed by having a house full of people, but either I'm softening up or I'm growing more and more sentimental in my old age. Uh, but by God, I love having my family around me, especially my wife's family. I got really lucky. I know a lot of people they talk about the mother-in-law or all these issues, but man, I've been blessed to have some in-laws that they absolutely feel like my own blood, and it's always a pleasure when I can get them here. It's wonderful to have them here. My sister-in-law brought her family with her, her baby girl. Brother-in-law flew in from Colorado. He serves in the military. He got to spend some time with us. I love these people. It's wonderful to see them. And then January came around, and it's back into the breach. So I'm cracking on now, slower than I typically do because time is so crazy. But I can still knock out a good chapter in a weekend. And a chapter for me, well, I think you guys know what a chapter for me feels like because they've been pretty consistent in length throughout my time doing this. Book one, Commune One, was like the first book I ever wrote, and some of those chapters are friggin' long. It's because I didn't know how to do it at the time. But I would say after like 2 or 3, I got a good sense of rhythm and pace for the way I like to do things anyway. So uh, now I'd say a chapter ends up looking like uh, 15 to 20 pages on average. It's double spaced. Don't get freaked out. But that equates to, I don't know, somewhere in the realm of between 4 and 5,000 words, depending on length. Which, that's a good little chunk for the weekend. It's not as much as I used to crank out, um, but also I think after you've done a few books, like the first couple of books I wrote, maybe even the first 5 books I wrote, it was just constant, like constant. I would be, you know, 20, 15, 20,000 words in not a sitting, but really fast it would come out. Now I think I've written 12 or 13 books. I lose count now. But after the newness wears off of it, it becomes a lot more about discipline than it does obsession and fine tuning versus the excitement of, oh, I'm doing the thing. So I'd say the process is much more refined, much more efficient now. Um, but I used to be able to put out 2 books a year, and I think I'm going to be a 1 book a year writer now, just to make sure that life doesn't sacrifice too much. A lot of commitments, a lot of commitments. But 8 is coming along nicely. I'm enjoying writing it. I'm enjoying writing Jake again, and there's new characters, obviously, that are introduced. There's always going to be new characters in every book, but it's fun when you get a character like Jake that and then you can kind of mix them in with new people and see what kind of fun new things happen. And after after my work with Devin, there were a lot of things that I learned from him, and one thing that I learned was he'd challenged me after working on 5, because up to Commune 5, I just like a madman outlined the hell out of everything I did. Every book was planned out very meticulously so that I knew what happened in each chapter, um, down to very sharp detail. In fact, when Devin and I worked on 5, I put together notes for the outline for us to work together. And he goes through the first few pages of it, and he says, this is not an outline. You've written a screenplay." And I said, "Well, yeah, but it's like screenplay. It's all dialogue, and then we'll put the describey bits in there, in between all the sentences, and there. So that's how I used to do things. That's exhausting, and it's also mm, it's less fun to write when you do it that way, because you're writing it twice essentially. Like you've conceived the thing, then you got to come back and you got to write it. You writing it again, and there's a real danger of becoming bored with the material when you do it that way. And a lot of times, there's there's certain scenes that I like to write in my books, and then there's other things that I don't really like to write at all. It's a chore, but all of the things together make the story. So even the parts that you don't have so much fun working on, well, that still has to be in there. The story is not complete without it. So you got to sit down, and when you outline it all of it is in danger of becoming a chore. And we discussed this. I had expressed these thoughts to him, and he said, "You know what? Sit down and write something without a plan. See if you can do it." He put a challenge to me, and I'm really grateful that he did, because I said, "Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, let's do that." That's how I wrote Commune 6. I sat down. I had a general idea of a concept, right? I knew what inspirations I wanted to draw from. In fact, if you listen to the quotes right at the start of the book, like, you get a really good sense right off, right? It's Don Quixote and Yojimbo. And maybe that was cheating. Like, maybe that makes the story a little bit easier to follow, because the structure of the story has an awful lot in common with Yojimbo. Kira Kurosawa, which is, I don't know. I don't know if Yojimbo or the Seven Samurai is my favorite Kurosawa film. They, I think they flip flop sometimes. Yeah. Put it this way: anything Mufune, Toshiro Mufune, anything he's in, I'm gonna watch it, man. He's like my favorite Japanese actors. He's incredible. Um, yeah, but anyway, that kind of makes it easier if you're going in without a plan. Like you have this established structure that you can kind of lean on. Um, and I'm doing that again in 8 because now I have the opportunity to. You lose one thing, you gain another. What, you lost Devin, can't work on it with him anymore, but now I'm on my own, so I don't have to collaborate. I don't have to plan with someone. That means I can just sit down and go. And the experience of writing 6 has given me the confidence to really just go for it, and understand that it doesn't really matter how much of a corner I think I might end up painting myself into, as long as I have a good sense of what I'm trying to say in the story. And I do have a good sense. Like I always know what the ending is, what I'm working towards, and I always know the thing that I'm trying to share with you. So those things being properly in their place, it gives you the ability to really get through it. And then because you don't really know what's going to happen, you just allow the story to kind of lead you. There's so many odd, interesting little tracks that you can just allow yourself to go down, and things have the potential to get really weird. And there's some weird stuff in Commune 7 that I'm particularly proud of. There's weird stuff that's going to be in 8 that I'm it's fun. It's really fun to write. So that's, for me, good. And hopefully that carries through to you folks in the reading. We'll see what you think. But yeah, uh, that's a lot of the updates right now. Um, like I said, we think Commune 7 goes to production in the fall, but I can't, of course, I can't promise anything. It's all based on uh, Podium and how they apply the goad. They really they work Bob a lot. No, that's all I'll say there. I'm going to go through and look at the comments here, see what you folks have to ask. Okay, start putting these up. This is going to be a big one. Okay. Should I read this out loud? I never know if I should. Like, you guys can read yourself, but here's text. This is from Facebook user. Thank you, Facebook user. Question about the first few Commune books. In the journals, the interviews with Jake, etc., there was a note that several of your characters said things like "you know" or "like," but when the books became present tense, those mannerisms never manifested. Was that intentional on your part? Well, yes. I mean, I called it out. Right? That was like, here's the thing, man. If or woman, whoever you happen to be, Facebook user. I live in California, so I will, for me, the words man and dude are non-gender specific, so I will use those all over the place. Uh, but yeah, here's your hint. If a writer ever calls your attention to something in the text, it's because they did it on, they're doing that intentionally. But yeah, I wanted that to be understood. I wanted it to be understood that Brian was doctoring up some of the language to improve composition and flow, and also to help support the idea that in those stories you're not getting the pure, unfiltered truth. You're getting an interpretation of the truth, and you're getting it through several different lenses, and it's upon you to combine things together and find what you believe is the truth throughout the story. That was the whole purpose of that thing. Let's see. I don't believe this is a question, but I'm going to put it up anyway. Don't stress too much about how you write your book. Reintroducing Jake, you are the author. I read your books because I enjoy your style of writing, so I have faith in how you do that. Thank you. Thank you. Have to admit, due to life, I haven't finished the last Commune, so I'm planning on a total reread while I'm on a long overdue holiday in a week. Yeah. Hey, man. Man. Life happens when it does. A book should not be a chore. It should be restorative. It should be something that makes you feel good. So we get to these things when we can. And if there's a book that's not you're not connecting with or you don't like, you should stop reading it and not feel any guilt about that. There's some books that look there's a lot of books that I DNF'd, and I think people they feel embarrassed about admitting things like that, as though I'm not smart enough to finish the book or the book somehow defeated me. But look, man, sometimes a story is just not your story. Uh, one of my one of my favorite writers from like even back in my childhood is John Steinbeck, right? Read a lot of his books from a young age. In fact, if you look at you can see some of his titles appear on my shelf, right? Oh, then there's some right there. There's some antique first edition copies, Cannery Row, that stuff. What was God? What was the one? Grapes of Wrath. Yeah, I got that one. Picked it up. Read. Oh, I think I went further than halfway through it. And in the process of reading it, I realized that the book was making me miserable because there's just not one happy thing that happens in the whole friggin' thing. It's just every chapter is another description about how this family is yet again kicked in the jimmies. So after a while, I kind of realized, I'm dreading picking this thing up because it just makes me feel awful when I read it. I didn't finish it. I love Steinbeck. That book was not for me. So hey, life is short. Devote your time to the things that please you. you know. Let's see. Let's see. This is Chris. Chris Hesse is a long time person here, so I always like seeing her. Hi, Chris. Good to see you again. I recognize you. I remember you. Okay, here's words from Devin on the subject. Okay, my output also dropped significantly because I was having a bad time with challenging children with additional needs, and I wasn't doing as much as I needed to. I Yeah, again, I wouldn't call it blame or anything else. I would just call it, life happens, challenges happen, and you have your uh prioritization, right? Your family's always going to win. You're when it comes to demands on time, right? It goes family, work, and then whatever's beneath that. So I guess I guess he can call it responsibility or blame or whatever, but I hold everyone in the equation blameless, except for Mark Zuckerberg. I'm sure he's to blame for something in this whole mess. Let's hate him for a minute. uh, let's see. Ryan Kimmons, 20 years. Yeah, sorry, buddy. Sorry, but hey, maybe at some point work quiets down and it goes back to 2 a year. I don't see it coming anytime in my future, though. work is work is very busy. It's a good problem to have. It really is a good problem to have. Okay, here we go. Here we go. I didn't read five as I didn't have interest in characters I wasn't invested in. Well, okay, whatever. That's fine. Here we go. We weren't truly invested in the original Commune Cats till most of the way through book one. You can't become invested in what you don't try. Not saying you have to read it, but you might really enjoy them. Yeah. I kind of, I, I don't know what that line is because every character that you ever loved, uh, they were an unknown before you knew who they were. Obviously, duh. But there's, I don't know. I think there's something to be said for the reality that introducing new characters into an ongoing series is probably the trickiest of all, because there's an expectation there, isn't there? Like Commune One, you kind of go into that knowing, okay, this is all new, this is new story, these are new characters, and I think you go in with that mindset, right? And then when the author gets a bright idea to do something like, hey, I'm gonna drop a book right into the series, but it's just gonna be completely over here, all new cast. Yeah, I can see where that would be a bit of a jarring disconnect. Um, so yeah, like I'm not really salty about it. If you read the thing and or tried to read the thing and said, well, I don't know any of these people and I want the other people. Yeah, I get it. I get it. Um, I have to apologize and state that I don't personally care, and that's not me trying to downplay your reaction to the story. Um, it's not. I don't care what you think. That's not what this is. This is simply just a disagreement. I think we'll call it a friendly disagreement. I know what I want the tapestry of the story to be overall. I know what I want the entire thing to be. And so there's certain foundations that have to be built. And book five was certainly a foundational book, and it sets up a lot of things. In fact, I'll give you a little background on it. When Devin and I first started talking about working on the series together, five didn't even exist as a concept, really. What we actually started talking about was seven, eight, and nine. So the original plan was going to be four would follow straight on to uh, the Slavers of Grand Saline. And if you, some of you who've been around here for a while, if you go all the way back to back in the day, right? Like after I finished four, I said, "Oh yeah, I think there's a coda in here, and I'll write a Gibbs book." That was going to be one, two, three, four, then Gibbs, right? Then we got involved with Devin, and everything kind of got topsy turvied. So he and I were talking about our plans for seven, eight, and nine. And then in the course of discussion for this, I realized, okay, well, there's a lot of things that have to happen in these books, and there's a huge gap of time because I already knew I wanted seven to pick up a significant amount of time after four and even six, because again, there's there my desire for the reader is that when you come to a story, it's all new and it's all mysterious, and everything is a puzzle that you have to start solving or master. And everything is like that. It's the characters must be an enigma. The world itself must be something new that you have to learn and get used to, no matter what. And having a big gap of time like that, it simply makes that easier to do, because there's just so much there. But as like I said, as we were talking through it, well, man, you know what? There's a lot that's going to be different in these books, and I feel like we need to set that up so that there's a bridge in the story. And the same thing happened to me when I was writing the original series, right? Some of you will probably remember that the books that I wanted to write when I started out were 3 and 4. Then I started thinking about how I would achieve that and realized that we were going to need a 1 and 2 to get everything set up before I could get to the main event. So that's very much what 5 became. That was the setup to get us to this next main event, bridge book. 5 and 6 are bridging books in a complete series or product. So uh, part of that indeed is the fact that I wanted to get the focus out of Wyoming because I felt like there wasn't much more to be done there. You don't want to keep going back to the same thing and keep mining the same ideas. I needed expansion. I needed largeness of story, and I needed more scope because there's very specific things I want to address. There's specific ideas that I want to explore, and you can't just do that in Jackson, Wyoming. You need a landscape to work with. And 5 was about that. 5 was about expanding scope. And if you didn't get it, okay, I understand. I wonder though if after 7, 8, and 9, there might be more interest in going back to and consuming 5 again. That's we'll see how that happens, you know. We'll see if that is the case for people. Uh and then if it is and you go back and suddenly you like it, well, hey, that's a win, you know. That's a win for you. If suddenly it's something you can connect with, that would please me. I'd like that. It's not going to hurt my feelings if you don't. It's also possible that we decide 6 is enough and we'll leave it there. That's fine too. You do what you got to do. Let's see what else. What else? Oh, okay. There's a follow-on point here that Christopher makes. I'll call this debatable. Book 1 made you get invested in the characters. Book 5 had no interest. I don't know. I had plenty of interest in writing it. When you believe in what you're doing, you get less worried about things like this, I guess. I think I've touched on this before. The only thing that really annoys me is when someone comes at me about this rudely. And Chris is not being rude here. He's stating how he reacted to the book. You know, it's a statement of fact for him, which is fine. I have had people come at me and just start, you know, they want to tell me how it's been screwed up and oh, you could have done this, you could have done that. You go, oh, yeah, okay, now we're getting into concerns of authorship. You go write your own thing. And you let me know how it goes for you. Here we go. Gary Norwood. And again, Christopher, I want to reiterate that any things that you're saying about not giving a damn about 5, I'm fine with it. Doesn't hurt my feelings. You're not annoying me. You're perfectly welcome to share that opinion. No problem, dude. You may have answered this before, but I've not spotted it on the collaborative work with DCF. How did you divide the workload? Did you both nurture and grow individual characters, or was it complete end-to-end collaboration? Yeah, that's an excellent question, and that's a process that evolved between us over time. So let me reconstruct the process in my head for a minute. It's been a minute now since we did this. So a lot of it, I think was my design, how the work was apportioned up, and it's because that's how I was able to conceptualize it for myself. Again, understanding that there was a time difference that we had to work around. So we needed a means to come together and collaborate for really, in-depth sessions, but then we had to be able to work separately on a thing and develop something, right? Sort of independent paths. So The way I conceptualized this in 5 was to say that, okay, well, it's my world, so I will provide this setting, and then you will essentially play in my sandbox. So, and this morphed over time. So to start, what we did was, I created DC, the mall, and any of the characters that were pre-existing in that world. So the mall faction, Columbia Heights, and Acostia, all of that was mine. Okay, that's all my build, my design. And then uh, the characters from Books and Bugs crew, the little group that comes to stay in the city, that was all Devin's. All those characters were of his creation. And when we started out, we were in the process of learning each other's characters, right? So in I would say probably the first half of the book, you have chapters that kind of shift POVs around, right? Like you're any chapters where it's like the point of view is from Books or Bug or like that specific crew. That's Devin's work. And then, anything where it's Knox or Grease or anything in that realm early in the book, that's me. Uh, and then at about the halfway point, we had reached a level of comfort and familiarity with each other's areas that we then started to swap. And I think it was just it wasn't something that we had done intentionally. At least I don't remember it being intentional. It just naturally happened because we developed a level of comfort with each other's areas, and we were able to add and supplement to what we were doing. So that's I guess long-winded, but that's kind of how we worked it out. And I personally think it went pretty well. Our writing styles are quite different, so there was a lot of polish work that had to go down after. So after he and I got our stuff together, I had to go back through the whole damn thing and rewrite it. And really, that's just for a homogenization of language, right? Because the way it was at the start, it would have been really jarring for you going between my chapters and his, because my sentences, the way I structure uh, words on the page tends to be very simplistic. Um, and maybe you've noticed this, maybe you haven't, but I think if you go back and look at it like really closely, and this is, go back to the first book, probably not, because that was still me getting my sea legs. But now, like, I kind of know what I'm doing. I know how I like to do things. Yeah, my sentences, my structure, uh, these foundational building blocks of a story, I tend to keep it as simple as I can. Short sentences. I like to use repetition sometimes, uh, and I like to be pretty severe. Whereas Devin is more poetic a lot of the time in his writing, and his sentences will end up being longer. And there's times where you get a long sentence, and it's because like the material comes out of him. So he doesn't have a trickle, man. He's got off, or he's got full blast, and it just starts happening. So sometimes what you get like a like this big sentence, and it's like, okay, this is all good, but it's not one sentence. This is like a lot of things that have to be broken up. And then every once in a while, well, not every once in a while, like as often as not would be a fair way to say it. Sometimes you just get something out of them that's like pure poetry. And I don't know if that's a symptom of being British or what. And it's like, okay, well, that must be preserved. Like, don't, that's art on the page. Don't mess with it. But it's jarring to go between those two styles, and it's a bit of a speed bump. So yeah, I had to go through and kind of homogenize things, and I did my best to preserve the very best of his language, and then kind of smooth out the parts that were just, they weren't wrong. They were discordant when placed against my own. And at the same time, I had this challenge of understanding, like, this has to sound like the other books in the series too. It's not just that the book can has to be consistent throughout. You've got all this surrounding material that it also must be consistent with. So that's the rewrite's a lot of work. I think that's enough about that. Let's see. Bray's output has dropped a bit too. It's not a blame thing, just reality. I'm just going to appreciate everything. Thank you very much, Mr. or Mrs. Facebook user. Yeah, I mean, uh, it's not spilling tea to state he's got medical issues. He has his own challenges, so he's got to. We've all got to do what we've got to do to take care of ourselves. Okay, Mr. Santos. Book 5 was kind of rough for me to get into the first time through, but I listened the second time later, and I feel like it was a lot better the second time through. Yeah. Again, I agree. There is a stumbling block to just come in there and be like, oh, here's all new characters. I think if I had it to do over again now, I think I probably would have started that book with the Otter, but I was so hung up at the time of getting the setting and the starting conditions of that story established, and then having the Otter just roll in there and have him just be like this giant catalyst that starts everything. Like everything gets really bad, right? And I was so tied to that idea that I think, let's just go for it. And then of course, there's a ton of characters in that story because the setting is so much larger, and you have to make the reader feel that. You have to make the reader feel that there's a lot more moving pieces at play, and I think that can make it a little hard to follow. And I think probably it could have been broken into 2 books maybe, but I didn't want to do that. Like, I was trying to keep things moving at an efficient rate. I didn't want to dwell too much. And yeah, I think uh it's a it's a well done book on its own. But I understand how tied into a continuous series it can be rough. And I think I learned a lot from that. Um but hey, we'll see, you know. When 7 comes, we'll see if I've learned anything at all. Let's see. Missing the fact he's building a universe. There will no doubt be crossovers. There would have been no longevity in the first 4. Yeah, thank you. I kind of feel the same way. I agree. Um, the other thing that I really like about having big gaps between these portions of the mainline series is that it leaves all this space in between to fill in if I feel like it. And I think in a lot of cases I do feel like it. I've already kind of decided that there's a book focused on Alan in there after 6, where he comes home to the bowl in Wyoming, and we have a little bit of that, and then him traveling out some more. I really like the character that Alan grew into in 6. Uh, in the original series, the first 4 books, those kids together, they were not as defined in my mind as I would have liked them to be. They were just kind of like, okay, I have a general idea of who this person should be and how they should behave. And but there was never any point where I really like connected with them. Maybe I shouldn't say this. maybe this ruins the magic a little for you guys. But there's characters that you really enjoy, and then there's characters that they need to be in the story, though you don't necessarily get excited about them. And that's just the truth. I knew I wanted them there for specific reasons in the original books, but I was not really excited about them when writing them at the time. They were tools for me. They were little tools that I could employ in the story to get my point across. But in 6, I feel like Alan really grew into someone that I enjoyed writing. I liked that he had some experience behind him now, and that there were idiosyncrasies of behavior that were not common to the common experience that you could explore. I loved how pragmatic he became. Like you could kind of see how Gibbs, I think, had rubbed off on him just in their travels together, but he had very much grown into his own person. And then, of course, if you're drawing off Don Quixote, uh, he makes a perfect Sancho Panza. You know, he makes a perfect Sancho Panza. Pinch makes a fantastic Dulcinea. And then, of course, if you're going to carry that idea through, then Don Quixote can never find Dulcinea. But that's that's not the worst thing in the world. Like maybe that just means that Don Quixote is still out there questing. You know, I like the idea that Gibbs is probably just still out there, wrecking somebody's day. uh, his otter being set up as a particular kind of archetype. It seems like he's destined to die, and it seems like it must be for a certain reason. Oh well, what can I tell you about the otter that doesn't give up more than I want to give up? Well, I would say that otter for me is honestly, I characterize him more as a tool, like some of these earlier characters I was discussing. More of a tool. He's utilitarian for me. It's really hard for me to connect with the otter because he's so different to the person that I am, and I mean like way different. Uh, I've never served in the military. I don't know what it's like to be a SEAL. Um, I know what it's like to have the level of dedication that he exhibits in the books, but I don't I don't know what that level of dedication feels like through his particular modality, if that makes sense. Otter is very much a believer in certain institutions, um, that for myself, to one degree or another, I am not. And I don't want to really get into politics here, but the otter, I think, believes in leaders and the mythology of leaders, and I have a hard time with that. I I I do not necessarily. I believe in principles. I believe in guiding principles. I think that for instance, the Constitution of the United States. I think that's wonderful guiding principles with perhaps a few screw ups along the way. you know, but I mean, really, if you just strictly interpreted it from day one, and we say, well, not too strictly, right? It's like it's all men are created equal. Well, okay. Maybe expand that a little. All people are created equal, right? Um, but outside of that, if you had just followed the damn thing and did what it said on the page, like you wouldn't necessarily have had all of these black eyes in our history that we now have to deal with. Just do what it says on the stupid page. But people love to interpret. But those are guiding principles, right? A leader will get up in front of you and tell you how to interpret principles. Leaders desire control, they desire influence, And I think you must always distrust somebody who desires influence. You always distrust the leader who wants to be a leader. And I think Otter still has that belief kind of ingrained in him that, oh, we've got the command structure, we've got leadership, we believe in the mission. I don't necessarily agree with that. And I think a lot of his story for me had been his belief systems along that line being challenged and broken down, and then seeing how he reacts to that, how he responds to it. I'll say that for my part, his his utility as a character has been served. I don't really see other stories requiring his detailed presence. There's certainly mentions of him throughout. He certainly had an impact on the world. But just to be straight with you guys, like I don't find him particularly interesting enough to come back and like I'm going to have a whole book that just focuses on him. It's not for me. I'm sorry. My my interest in stories is not having the uber alpha military dude be the central person. I don't find that interesting. I find normal people or uh I guess in general normal people, right? Like your average everyday person. I find them being introduced into extreme situations to be far more interesting. And then like the the outliers, those are people that you introduce in to upset the apple cart, right? Like in the original four books for me, Jake never felt like a main character. Not to me. Probably to you guys, sure. Yeah. Like the first book starts off with him. But for me, always when I write Jake, he's he's not the primary POV. He's a presence. He's he's this thing that you always feel is there, right? And you know he's going to impact things and he's going to catalyze events in very specific ways. And a lot of the fun is just, well, how is he going to do that, right? But in my case, like the main characters for me always felt very much like Billy and Elizabeth and Amanda, and of course Gibbs later on. Like those were sort of like the people I was really like that. That's my main, and Jake is just this thing, right? And it continues to be like that when I write him. Uh, he's he's easy for me to write. I know exactly who he is and how he must be and how he must behave and what he would do in any situation. But again, he's oh, for me, he's more concept than human. I don't think I care to go any further than that. Yeah, yeah, I think that's good. Jake is a concept, Otter is a tool. Mm, let's see. Book two, still my fave book. Thank you. I want us to go back to the bowl, maybe a short spin-off story. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Look. There's never going to be a story. Well, I guess you shouldn't say never, right? Like, there's always the possibility of an idea, but I just at this point in time where I am in life, I can't see uh, setting an entire story back in the bowl. It's just it. There's there's nothing really of interest to me there now outside of perhaps showing how things have evolved a little over time, but I'm not gonna like how many times can crazy things pop off over there. That's enough. um, oh, I think I was starting to say this earlier and then I got sidetracked because that's how I am, but the big gaps, right? Yeah, in the in the stories. that leaves you the ability to come in and sprinkle stories in between. So you could get like a Commune 6.1, 6.2. I was kind of playing around with the idea of doing that just so it could kind of help you place it like within the timeline. Oh, this is like you've got these what's right and left on this camera, right? So you've got like 1 and 4 over here, you've got 7, 8, and 9 over here, and then in the middle you've got these two bridges, big gaps in between that we can fill in with all kinds of fun stuff. And then what's great is because I have a good understanding of where the world is at each point in that timeline, I don't have to devote a lot of thought to what are the conditions of the environment depending on where I want to set the story, right? Like if I want a setting where the world and the society looks a certain way, right? If I want things to be a little more structured, a little more organized, a little more established, I put it later in the timeline. I go past 6 and beyond. And if I want it to be more isolated, more stark, a little more severe, I go before that and I can move things backward. And it's like I have a little arrow on a timeline and I could just grab it and drag it until the world looks exactly the way like I need it to. And then right there, that's where the story is. And get some characters, throw them in there. Here we go. So that's nice to have. It's good that you can just you've got like this whole setting that's built out. Now it's like, oh, you know what? I've got an idea. I I just got this cool idea for a story. The setting works perfectly for it. Perhaps these characters that I already have, they're good to sprinkle in there. Believability is a thing for me though. Like I don't like how many stories, how many adventures can you write about one specific person before it becomes a little like how many shootouts did Wyatt Earp really get into? You can't just keep doing this. There's got to be somebody else that something happened to at some point. Uh, Here we go. 7 launches and I drop everything. Can't wait. That's good to hear. I love that. I love that. There's only a couple of comments left on this stream here. Let's see. Irene is excited for Alan. That's good. I'm glad. I like Alan. He's cool. I can't wait for book 7. Gibbs is someone I can relate to. Well, unfortunately, Gibbs is not in Commune 7. Jake is. So if you want Gibbs, go read Commune 6. I don't know that there's too much beyond 6 for Gibbs that's exciting and worthy of writing about. I think there could be. Because and really the only reason I say that right now is because I would like to see more of Gibbs and Rosalie together. That seems like a match made in heaven to me, which I hadn't even really considered when I started writing it. Gibbs for me has always oddly been a sexless character, despite the fact that he's always kind of he's flirting with people. He's the sexiest man alive. His half joking call sign at one point was Casanova Actual, and uh, the Marines have this funny quality about them. They have a hard time saying no to certain things. What's that Willie Nelson song? Last night I came in at 2 with a 10, but woke up at 10 with a 2. Like, I bet that's happened to Gibbs a few times. Oh yeah, but yeah, I loved them together, and then after a while, I kind of realized, oh yeah, I think I think they end up together. I'll just write that, and I like the way it came out. It made me happy. Um, but yeah, it's odd that was really the first, the first bit of something that we saw Gibbs get to have since he's ever been introduced. And I don't know what that was. I don't know why I don't know why it never occurred to me. Like we kind of flirted with the idea when he was first introduced in the second book, and then what was her name? Oh, I don't remember anymore. I don't remember the name of the character. It's been a long time since I wrote it, and I killed her very soon. Spoilers for a book that was written in 2018. Yeah, but there was that girl that he was kind of flirting with. The lady, excuse me, she was old enough to have a daughter. Flirted with her a bit, and there was that hint. But then after that, he was just on his own. I think a lot of that is down to his character. He's kind of crotchety, kind of set in his ways, and it's kind of hard to re-break yourself or retrain yourself to a new person once you've gotten set in your ways. I know after, boy, oh boy, we're getting really close to 30 years with my wife. Not married 30 years, but have been with this person 30 years longer, with her longer than I haven't been. And if anything happened to us, like, I don't think I'd bother trying again. Uh, I'll never get it again as good as I have it with her right now. And she's my one. There's so I think, like, I kind of identify with Gibbs on that level. I think that at one point he was pretty convinced that he had his one, and it didn't work out. And after that, it was until Rosalie came along. I was really happy to see him have that at the end. Maybe they have another story together, um, but I don't know yet. I don't know. I like the idea of writing another Gibbs book, but I don't know where it is, what happens in it, what it's about, what its purpose is. I just know that I don't want six to be the last book with Gibbs that I want to write. I'd like to come back and do it again. Uh, and yeah, there's other books to write. Um, got Commune 8 to do right now, then Commune 9. That completes a 5-book contract with Podium Publishing, and then I'm free to pursue new ideas. I like getting books like done when I owe them to somebody. I don't want to work on side projects, but I definitely want to come back to uh, Udo's world and see what happens after Udo the God, and where does the story go from there. I've got an idea for another kind of a standalone book that's kind of oddball and out there compared to what I think you've become used to me writing. More kind of a supernatural. So I guess you would term it supernatural horror slash thriller. But the way I like to do these things, so it'll probably be wordy, long, and kind of gross. Hmm. Let's see what else. What else? Yeah, okay. Wang would be an interesting character to build on. Hmm, maybe, maybe. I hadn't given it a lot of thought. Wang, I always felt like he he'd been put through enough. Give him a happy ending. Leave it at that. Uh, any chance of a movie based on the original series? I have no idea, honestly. It's so funny. The film industry is such a broken mess these days. It seems. Um, I don't. I don't know. I don't believe that there's currently enough interest in the book series to make the bean counters in Hollywood think that it would be a wise investment. Let's put it that way. Like, I don't rule it out. I think it would be fun to do. I think it would be a relatively cheap series to produce because it's like you don't need big sci-fi backdrops. It's just like go find somewhere that looks really ragged and put just a little set dressing on it, and then have a small group of people walk through the foreground with rifles and backpacks, and there's your setting. But Hollywood is a that industry is all about gambling. And so the way they do it is they say, okay, well, we've got this much money to make a movie, but we want to win back this much money. That's a big pot. And I think they've all become very addicted to the $1 billion payout. That's why you see them like they keep shooting themselves in the foot. They keep trying to recreate the Marvel success. Even Marvel's trying to recreate it, and they're not doing it. Like they're completely screwing it up. And I think there's a lot of uh, there's a lot that goes into that. There's stagnation. There's the handing over of the torch from one creative force to another. There's like all these things that are feeding into it. But at its core, what you have, very simply, is the movie industry is a corporate industry, which means that everybody who's holding on to the purses are extremely risk averse. And storytelling is all about taking risk. Movies, good movies, are all about taking risk. But the industry that brings it to you is not. So what do? They take every step that they can to mitigate the risk and try to guarantee their return on investment. But the problem with that is that when you do that and you exercise too controlling a hand, the thing you're producing ceases to be art and becomes homogenized, mass-produced product. Uh, and so you have the situation that you have right now, and then all the accountants start to panic and they think, oh my god, the things that we know that work don't work anymore, and we have to come up with something. I think that in the next few years what you're really going to see is like a return to mid and low budget being the order of the day. Like as a film studio, right, you can make just a ton of movies on a budget of, I don't know, perhaps 40-50 million. We're talking a good sized studio, right? Bunch of movies do it about 40-50 million dollars, right? Just comparatively speaking, uh Aliens, James Cameron's Aliens way back in the day, of course you have to adjust dollars for inflation, but back in the day I think that was like an 18 million, maybe a $20 million budget to make that movie, and like look how it looks, right? I would love to see movies, especially like sci-fi movies and so forth, come down to those smaller budgets, because then it will force the filmmakers to become creative again and not just say, oh, it's fine, just take the actors and put them in front of a green screen and we'll fill all the other stuff in later. Like that, it looks horrible. I don't care how much money you put into the special effects or how much you pay the studio or how much time you give them. It just still looks fake. Like it looks fake to me. And it reminds me that I'm watching a movie, which I don't want. I want to see smaller budget stuff. Really, I do. I think that's what's going to happen too. You can do that and you can absorb loss a lot easier when you've got your interests diversified versus, well, we're going to take 250 million or 300 million dollars and we're just going to dump it all into this one thing, and then it's going to bomb and torpedo the studio. And then what do you have? You have only like your Marvels, your Lucasfilms, your Disneys. Like these are the studios that can financially absorb bomb after bomb after bomb. Right? But I I don't know. Like I said, there's a lot of moving parts at play. It's an absolute miracle that anything good ever gets made under any circumstances because of how many people have a real control in the decision making process. Like you get too many cooks in the kitchen, and you just get mush. Uh, so to that end, I would say be careful what you wish for. Like, I want to see Commune adapted. Maybe you don't. Maybe you don't, because I'll tell you what. And oh, if anybody ever turns this into a series, you make sure you keep control. Yeah, well, okay, good luck with that. That's a fantasy. I'm not putting any money into turning the thing into a series, so I have no say. I don't have the readership that like a Tolkien or a Rowling has, so I can't put it into the contract that says, "Oh, I get to approve whether." they'll laugh and say, "Oh, okay, well then your thing's not getting made. We're just going to go over here to this other sucker and we're going to get them to sign on." So if that's part of it. Like if you want to see this thing adapted, what that requires is someone like me just going, "Okay, well I'll take the money," which is what I would do. I'd take the money. And if they adapted the thing and completely screwed it up, I'd be fine with it. I wouldn't care because I've got the book. I made the book. That's my thing, and I'm very proud of it. Put the movies out. You know, it's terrible. It pisses everybody off. That's okay. That just means, well, here's the book. And that was something that my publisher expressed to me too. They were like, you know what? Even if they screw it up, it's still a win for you because we know this for a fact, demonstrably so. We have the data to show it. Even if the movie sucks, it drives readers to your series. So, hey man, financially and artistically too, it's a win for me either way because it drives readers to me, it drives in revenue, and it helps to highlight the fact that here, this is the art, you know, that this. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I'll sell the son of a bitch to how much? All right. Yeah, here we go. Coming on Jacksonville, The Last of Us. Yeah, have you noticed that now though? That so The Last of Us was arguably successful. I didn't stick around past like the third episode. I got pretty bored with it pretty fast. Partially, just because the game itself is so much of a movie. I know a lot of people liked that game. I couldn't get into it because it was too much on rails. Uh, a movie is a movie, and a game is a game. I do not want to play a movie, and The Last of Us is too much like playing a movie for my taste. And a lot of people like the adaptation. Great, that's awesome. I think I think that what's his face? I can't remember his name now. The guy that got to play Joel was the wrong choice. I think the perfect choice to play Joel would have been the with I can't remember anybody's name. The guy who played Jamie Lannister in the Game of Thrones. That's like a perfect Joel. Him. Just get a little bit more muscle onto that skinny old boy and give him a backpack and a pistol and a rifle, and there's your Joel. But did you notice how after this the success of The Last of Us, suddenly everybody's adapting video games now? Oh, we've got this team, and I mean, like that's always been a thing, right? Like since what Super Mario Brothers with Bob Hoskins, John Leguizamo, um, which I found to be much more interesting than the animated Mario Brothers they just came out with. Like I know one was a lot more true to the source than the other, but I Dennis Hopper pretending to be a dinosaur. I, I I have notoriously bad taste. Sometimes in movies, I like seeing really dumb stuff like that. It's fun. I enjoy Samurai Cop. But yeah, man, they're hot on the. Well, I think we're gonna get a big glut of video game film adaptations now because somebody did it and made it work, and now Hollywood they're just a bunch of yeah. I'm convinced that like at the top offices of the people in Hollywood that make all these decisions, you don't actually have people. You just have Xerox machines. And all they do is they find the thing that somebody else, ooh, let's get that. Let's take this concept and give it to a team of people that have had success somewhere. And this team of people will be a group of people that have like no actual interest in the thing that I'm giving them. Like they want to do their own thing, but let's give them that thing and say, okay, here. Do like this, do like this, do like this. And then you get like Sony and, and and Morbius and Madam Web. Oh my God. I'm I'm ready for the comic book movies to just go into the sunset, man. They're kind of there already. I think it's over. The party's over. But man, can't wait to hold that wake. Alrighty. I'm going to call it a day here. We've been at it for an hour and a half. All my updates are out. I have informed you all about what's going on. So I feel as though I've taken care of things. Yeah. Uh, I got things to be about. And I'm sure you folks do too. All 10 of you. All right, everyone. Take care. Have a good day. Oh, here's the camera. Bye bye.